In today's video, we're going to be covering 10 tips on how to stop an autism meltdown. Here we go. Well, hello there, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. And if you're brand new to my channel, I talk about autism on a weekly basis. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to see more, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. And like I say in today's video, I'm going to be talking about ways to stop an autism meltdown. And really the first tip I have for you is to be calm. Now, if you're with an autistic person who is experiencing a meltdown and is having a meltdown in, I don't know, Walmart. We'll go with Walmart because everyone wants to do meltdown Walmart videos these days. Being calm and collected when you're with the person can be really helpful and really important to do. Because when I'm in a meltdown, for example, I don't always have control of what I'm doing. In my mind, everything's like a tornado. It's all swirling around. I can see houses. I can see cows going moo as they go past my head. But it's also important to remember that just because an autistic person is having a meltdown and, you know, it can be terrifying to experience sometimes, I will admit this. We are the same person, you know, we're just having a difficult time of it. So being calm and collected can be really helpful in stopping a meltdown or stopping a meltdown from escalating even further. Another tip, don't raise your voice, you know, because someone in a meltdown may not understand what you're saying or know what to do, because like I say, it's kind of like a vortex in the head and just everything's just like that. So when someone immediately doesn't respond to you or understand what you're saying, it's important to remain calm and not raise your voice, because if you raise your voice, that's a sign of aggression. I know in some situations when someone raises their voice, it's them trying to ascertain what's going on, but it's not helpful. So when you are talking to an autistic person who is in a meltdown, trying to understand the situation, it's important to not raise your voice because it can escalate things even further, and that's something that we don't want to happen. Another tip, don't overload the person with information. Now this one is really key, because if you're in a meltdown, it's very hard to retain information because just everything's going a million miles an hour, like I keep saying. So if you're telling someone a bit of information, or you know, you're trying to get information from the person, you know, it's important to keep it as clean and clear as possible. If the autistic person is unable to understand or cooperate, or just unable to answer your questions, then don't try and keep bombarding them with questions, because it's just not gonna help. So just making sure that you don't overload an autistic person can just be really helpful. Next tip, if someone's having a meltdown, don't touch, especially if they say don't touch, or if you know they don't like being touched, just don't touch them. Now this is because some autistic people are really sensitive to touch, so a touch in the arm may seem simple enough, it might not seem threatening or intrusive in any way, but for an autistic person, if they're especially sensitive to touch, it can feel like burning on the skin, and also it can be seen as intrusive. You know, if the person is able to verbalize they want to be touched, that's absolutely fine, but if they don't, just don't. Next tip, trying to get that person out of that state of mind. Now, a meltdown can be a very scary thing, especially if you're like me when it comes to meltdowns and you just don't know what's happening. You're just all scatterbrained and just like trying to get the person out of that state of mind to concentrate on something, whether it's the sounds or sight or anything like that, trying to reconnect with their senses to ground the person and to try and get the person out of that state of mind of, I'm having a meltdown, this is crazy, what am I doing with my life? Right, the camera died, I'm really sorry if the angle's changed in any way. Actually, that can cause a meltdown, you know, just a simple little thing of the battery dying. And actually, one of the best ways to try and stop a meltdown from happening, especially if you're with someone who has meltdowns as well, it's important to remember to breathe. Now, I personally don't experience this myself, but I know some people who do, like they just forget that breathing exists. So if you're with someone and they're forgetting to breathe or just not breathing, it's important to encourage the autistic person to breathe, because if someone stops breathing or forgets to breathe, it can be very dangerous. So literally just any kind of little simple breathing exercise, either in through the nose, out through the mouth. So not as aggressively like that, it was just an example. I mean, that face I made though. And also the next tip, if you're with someone who's having a meltdown, it's very important, and I think it's good for the person as well to get them to a safe place. Now, a safe place could be just away from people if you're out in public, or just a quiet area for them to be able to decompress, calm down, whatever they need to do. Personally, for me, when I'm having a meltdown, I need to go outside because I get really hot, as well as bit confused and stuff. I tend to sit down on a bench or even on the floor sometimes. I've been known to do that. Now, this next tip is for everyone out there. You know, if you're with someone who's having a meltdown, just being patient with them, because obviously you've probably gathered through this video that it is a hard thing to understand sometimes, but for the people who witness autism meltdowns, either through their kids or just out in public generally, you know, it's a very misunderstood thing at times. It's just important to be patient with the person, just allow them that time just to calm down. Now, after the meltdown, if you're with the person or if you experience meltdowns, you know, it's important to give yourself or the person recovery time, you know, time to recover from that intense experience. Because for me personally, when I've had a meltdown, you know, it takes a lot out of me personally. It's very draining. Like for me, for example, if I'm scatterbrained during a meltdown, which happens quite often, you know, I'll try to figure out what is happening, but sometimes it doesn't happen, so I'm wasting energy trying to figure out what's happening when I just literally just can't figure out what's happening. Allowing the autistic person or yourself time just to calm down after the meltdown, and then having time to just recover from that experience, you know, and just making sure you're looking after yourself or the autistic person in question can just really help. But just remember, just because someone has a meltdown doesn't mean that they are not the same person. They just need a little bit of help, and I hope by sharing these tips with you that you can take them with you. And if someone has a meltdown, that you know how to handle the situation, or if you have meltdowns yourself, maybe you can have that conversation with people that you know, people that you trust, and letting them know what is best for you in that situation. If you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos of mine, there's a couple of playlists right there, and if you want to subscribe to the channel, click that button right there. But for now, stay you, stay indie. I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you next time.